Comprehensive comic. Beginning of God on Earth. Chapter 31. The night breeze still suppressed his desires. Now in broad daylight, still in front of Grandpa Zushi, what to do is really not good. He patted his little hands, and reprimanded his hands in his heart. However, after hearing that the other party's name was indeed Zushi, Nightwind suddenly realized how long ago he had come. The Pearl World has not been turned into a ghost by Wu Miao, isn't this hundreds of years ago? It's really a speechless incident, this time crossing can't be controlled, it actually came so long ago. Your name is nice, I'm sorry to bother you. Quote. Nightwind casually replied to Zushi, and when he heard his praise, Zushi, who was like a peach blossom, was even more ashamed. It was the first time she was praised by the opposite, and this feeling was sweet and pleasantly surprised. After learning of her illness, the people of the town didn't really treat her very well. If it weren't for the fact that her grandfather was the only doctor in town, she probably wouldn't be alive until now. Zushi then whispered back in a gentle tone, Lord Nightwind, you don't have to be restrained, the little girl will take you to the inner room. Quote. She came to the back room with the night breeze and quickly went to the kitchen to prepare tea and pastries. Although she was sick, neither she nor her grandfather understood it. It will only lead to her body gradually weakening, she has been nourishing with medicinal herbs, and her body is not bad yet. Seeing the futon in front of the wooden table, the night breeze sat on the ground, and did not choose to kneel like the old man. Zushi's grandfather didn't care about this either, and he greeted with a kind face. Lord Knight, we have an empty room here, I'll wait for Zushi to make 2 quilts, that's all I can do, please forgive me. Quote. Their family is not poor, and the etiquette and hospitality are as good as possible. It's just that Grandpa Zushi doesn't know what Nightwind thinks, so he is afraid of snubbing him. Night Breeze nodded slightly and said kindly, that's enough. Quote. Seeing that the Night Breeze felt quite satisfied, Grandpa Zushi breathed a sigh of relief. Then he changed his words and asked in a low voice, then adults, do you have a marriage match? Seeing that Grandpa Zushi's intention was so obvious, Nightwind could only shake his head. Seeing this situation, Grandpa Zushi was even more pleased. Originally, I thought that it was not impossible to have a marriage match, but since there was none, it would be better. Being the wife of an eldest woman is different from a concubine, and a wife has status. Lord Knight, the villain won't hide it from you, the little girl is 17 years old. The reason why I didn't get married is mainly because my body is a little weak, but working and having children is not a problem. My family has also practiced medicine for generations, and I don't need you to spend money to take care of her. Quote. Grandpa Zushi immediately began to try his best to persuade and promote his granddaughter. In this era, it is not uncommon for children to get pregnant at the age of 13 or 14. Is like Zushi, who is 17 years old and has not yet married, and is already a leftover girl among the leftovers. As Zushi's grandfather, he knows very well how his body is. It is satisfying to see one's great-grandson or great-granddaughter come into the world before he dies. If I can't hold on anymore, my granddaughter won't get married. In such a war-torn era, she will be eaten by the wicked people and there will be no scum left. Before she died, her granddaughter had to have a man and a person to rely on before she could continue to live in this world. Zushi, who came back with tea and pastries outside the door, also heard the voice of his grandfather inside the door. Her cheeks immediately turned crimson, and her face was ashamed, but there was a hint of anticipation in her eyes. Zushi also knows that he is getting older, and his body is getting weaker day by day. If she can see her child born and pass on her life, she will also be satisfied. It's the first time I've seen a granddaughter who is so anxious to send her granddaughter, and the key is that the granddaughter she sent is so beautiful. Thinking of the information about Zushi in his memory, Yifeng also understood why Grandpa Zushi was in such a hurry. Perhaps Grandpa Zushi has realized that his granddaughter has an incurable terminal illness, which is why he is so anxious. Even Grandpa Zushi, who realized that his tone was too urgent, had no choice but to watch how the night breeze responded. Nightwind was silent for a moment, lost in thought. In this silent silence, Zushi outside the door also nervously clenched his fingers white, and his face became more and more pale. I can marry Zushi, but I don't have a family or property, so you won't mind being a grandfather. Quote. Hearing that the night wind was worried about this, Zushi outside the door suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. And thinking that if Night Wind agreed, she should be his wife, and two red glows suddenly rose on her face. She had been looking forward to this day for a long time, and she had prepared for it. Grandpa Zushi in the back room also smiled and waved his hand again and again. It's okay, it's enough to have you. Quote. I can find a grandson-in-law now, thank God. What's more, before the night wind, the picture of a black bear hammered to death with his bare hands is still vivid. If such a man of God can marry his granddaughter, he will be in a hurry, how dare he mind. He had been waiting for this day for a long time, and immediately got up and prepared to go out to make arrangements. Outside the door, Zushi also hung his head, came in and carefully placed the tea and pastries in his hand on the table, and filled the night breeze with a cup. She cautiously peeked at the night breeze beside her, and the deer in her heart was bumping. The words of the matchmaker of the parents, not to mention the arrangement of their only relatives, grandfather. Zushi, who has a gentle and kind personality, accepted this matter very calmly. Even if he met with night breeze, it would not be a quarter of an hour. Zushi, you talk to the night breeze more, I'll go out and prepare. Quote. Got it, Grandpa, be careful. Quote. Zushi nodded slightly, and as Grandpa Zushi closed the wooden door, she was the only one left in the house with the night breeze. The night breeze naturally set his eyes on Zushi, staring at her like a work of art. Zushi hung his head shyly, and only dared to peek at the night breeze in front of him with his peripheral vision. Every time her gaze met Night Wind's, she ducked away like a frightened rabbit, but quickly moved her gaze back. There was silence between the two, and it was Night Wind who broke the deadlock. He just looked at Zushi's body with perspective eyes, and he can only say that it is very white, very moist. Later, he was also a little serious, and glanced at it a few times to see what lesions were in her body. It's just that he hasn't been exposed to medical knowledge yet, and he hasn't seen anything for a long time. Nightwind simply opened his mouth and asked about medicine. Zushi, who didn't expect Nightwind to talk about this, hurriedly responded, and became more and more excited to talk later. She has a talent for medicine herself, and she has learned all the medical skills taught by her grandfather, and even out of the blue. In addition, she kept reading various medical books, just to treat her strange diseases. If it weren't for the fact that she was a woman, her grandfather was still there, and no one was looking for her to see a doctor, otherwise her reputation would have spread long ago. Zushi was surprised that Nightwind was interested in this aspect, and felt that his arrival was predestined. Grandpa Zushi, who came back, saw his granddaughter chatting happily with the night breeze, and the last stone in his heart was also put down. At night, he simply arranged the room where Yefeng slept to Zushi's bedroom. Regarding his grandfather's arrangement, Zushi did not mean to oppose it. When the night breeze arrives, Zushi is preparing to sleep. As soon as the door opened, Night Breeze saw Zushi, who had taken off his hair clip and scattered his long black silky hair. The white pajamas were more form-fitting than the loose kimonos, and the high bulges seemed to break through the restraints to breathe. Seeing the arrival of the Night Breeze, Zushi, who had already been mentally prepared, still had a fair and pretty face. Big. As soon as Zhu Shigong spoke, Night Wind asked rhetorically, what adult? Lord, Master. Zushi then whispered, and his round earlobes were red and hot. The master here does not mean the modern meaning, the master in her mouth means the head of the family. Under the background of the hazy light, Zushi's delicate and lovely appearance seemed to refuse the invitation. Nightwind walked directly to Zushi and sat down, stretched out his palm and gently hugged her snow-white shoulder. Zushi's shoulders are soft and well-proportioned, as light as wings, and the seductive curves are swept downward, and the deep lines are faintly visible in the pajamas that naturally fall. Zushi, still call me what I told you, call me husband. Quote. The night breeze voice was calm with a hint of majesty, how dare the gentle Zushi have the meaning of refutation, and bowed his head slightly and whispered, husband. The delicate whisper was like gasoline poured on an oil lamp, causing the flames in the heart of the night breeze to rise several meters high. Zushi only felt that the night breeze's sturdy body was getting hotter and hotter, and his little hands were also grasped by the night breeze in the palm of his hand, gently stroking, as if he was playing carefully. Zhu Shi's pretty cheeks became more and more rosy and hot, but her body did not resist the night breeze. A string tied Zhu Shi's pajamas, and one end of the rope was pinched in the hand of Nightwind's other hand. Through the dim lighting, the night breeze can clearly see the perfect arc from the back to the waist and hips, and the close-fitting pajamas also outline the slender waist of the pearl world. Under the shadow of the lamp, the string slowly pulled apart, and Zhu Shi could only bow his head slightly and lean on the shoulder of the night wind. She even adjusted her body a little so that the night breeze could move better. In her opinion, she has been betrothed to Night Wind by her grandfather. That's why she directly calls Night Wind Master, and she has regarded him as her husband from the bottom of her heart. The wedding organized after that was just a formality, and there was only obedience to the actions of the night wind, not rejection. The night breeze can also feel the different charm of Zhu Shi. She has a submissiveness that modern women do not have. From the first time she saw her, Nightwind only saw the beauty of a woman, without the slightest pride. Such a docile and kind girl, Nightwind feels that she is lucky to have come to this point in time. As for this piece of beautiful meat that has been put on his mouth, Nightwind naturally laughs at it. Under the flickering lights, the figure of the Nightwind quietly pressed down, and the originally made bed was directly empty. When he got up the next day, he saw that his granddaughter didn't come out, and Grandpa Zhu Shi was also quite surprised. He didn't expect the progress to be so fast, so the preparations for his wedding had to be advanced. But when it comes to weddings, in this year, the main thing is to set up a table to let the people nearby know that their daughter is married. Regarding the behavior of Yi Feng stealing food in advance, Grandpa Zhu Shi didn't mind, but was very happy. Because if it goes well, I may really be able to see my great-grandson in my lifetime. Nightwind came to the pharmacy, and according to the knowledge about medicine that Zhu Shi told him yesterday, he quickly selected a recipe to nourish the body. Seeing that Yefeng was also proficient in medicine, Grandpa Zhu Shi really had nothing to say in his heart. A godsend, a good son-in-law. After sighing, he went outside to contact the cook and carpenter to prepare for the banquet and the furniture. Night Breeze didn't expect to come to another world, but it turned out that he came to get married. The only question is whether to stay or not. Quote, "It's okay to simply stay for a while, but you can't stay idle when the night breeze grows." And Zhu Shi's physical problems are also very serious, and now her body is like a dome. He just used a little force to hold it in the palm of his hand, and the other party was like a flower that would wither at any time. There are reasons on his side, but a small part also has the factor of poor health of Zhu Shi. Do you want to make Zhu Shi a ghost? Take a step at a time, you have to kill a few ghosts first and plunder their abilities. Quote. After pondering for a moment, Nightwind quickly made a decision in his heart. After boiling the porridge, he took it back to the bedroom. Seeing the arrival of the night wind, Zhu Shi struggled to get up and say goodbye, but was pressed back by the night wind. Now Zhu Shi, you have a good rest and listen to me. I know, husband. Quote. Zhu Shi's white and tender face was red and hot like a boiled lobster, and he groaned. She was shy and guilty, and after experiencing the storm and turmoil, she knew that she had not been able to meet the night wind. Listening to the slightly tough words of the night breeze, Zhu Shi's heart was more at ease. The spring water in her eyes seemed to be overflowing with ripples at this moment. For the next few days, the night breeze was immersed in the gentle countryside of the Pearl World. Day 1. Play poker. Day 2. Play poker. Day 3. After the wedding, play poker. Day 4. Night breeze, you can't go on like this, how can you be so depraved? Have you forgotten all the plans you made before? You can't go on like this. Day 5. Play poker. On the 7th day, Night Breeze set off for a visit to a neighboring village. The main thing is that she can't bear it anymore, and her grandfather also feels sorry for his granddaughter, so he can let him go out for a walk and relax his body and mind. Yefeng thinks this is right. After all, Zhu Shi's health is not very good. Although I have nourished a few times, it is like eating ginseng, eating less to nourish the body, and eating too much may nourish the body too much. I know that I really have too much night wind, and I feel that I have to do something serious. He heard rumors of evil spirits eating people in the neighboring town, so he immediately ran over. It is 20 or 30 kilometers away from here to the neighboring village, and the night wind takes less than 10 minutes to arrive. After spending a little money and inquiring about the news here, Nightwind had a rough idea that there was indeed a family in the town that had died. They don't know if the demon killed it, but a samurai who calls himself a ghost hunter has come to investigate. Demon Slayer. Looks like we're going to get something out of it tonight. Quote. Nightwind glanced at the task board on the panel. The second mission is related to the Demon Slayer team, and you have to join them. It's just that Nightwind is not interested in the so-called random breathing method of rewarding at all. What's the use of breaking the breathing method? He now has at least hundreds of tons of strength in one punch, and the breathing method really doesn't even have the power to top a ball. It's better to spend a few more days in the sun and try to fly before returning to the main world. He was basking in the sun during this time, and he was laying the foundation. In essence, his body now can only be regarded as a newborn Kryptonian baby. It's just that the body is adult, which causes the absorbed solar energy to be quickly converted into physical strength. It's like being a skinny person, you have to eat at least until you have meat before you can start hoarding fat. Therefore, in terms of awakened abilities, most of them have not made much progress, but only awakened the most basic abilities. Nightwind was not too impatient, because with his current strength, he estimated that the so-called Ghost King without misery was no longer a problem. Whether the other party can break through his defenses is a question. He spent all his time in the neighboring town basking in the sun on the streets until late at night. On Zushi's side, he had said before he set off that she could only be obedient and encourage her husband to make any decision he wanted. And she really can't bear it, even if the night wind leaves for a night, she feels that her body is full. Zushi, who is at home, has now begun to consider marrying a few more concubines for her husband. Otherwise, she was the only one to meet the firepower of the night wind, and she might not live long as her wife. Seeing that the time was approaching in the early hours of the morning, the night wind had already heard a strange noise coming from the town. He walked down the street, taking a leisurely walk to the house of the family who had been killed. In the shadows of the corner of the house, a figure with blood-stained cheeks and green pupils quietly appeared. And the samurai of the demon slayer who were already ready to go, they clenched the blades in their hands and stared at the demons that appeared. Ha ha ha. Demon Slayer, a few weak humans, but your flesh and blood should be sweeter. The hideous-looking demon stuck out its slender tongue and licked the blood off its face. When he was hiding during the day, he heard the news of the arrival of the Demon Slayer squad. He came here tonight to kill a few people from the Ghost Slayer team to have fun. Hearing the demon's shrill laughter, one of the 3 Demon Slayer warriors angrily swung their swords at the demons. In just an instant, the demon spat out the slender tongue in his mouth, and shattered the blade in the samurai's hand in one fell swoop. Under the frightened gaze of the Oni Slayer samurai, the person who took the lead in the charge was directly pierced through the head by the demon's tongue. Smack! The demon withdrew his tongue and swallowed the blood and brains from the tip of his tongue into his stomach. Well, it's delicious. Quote. The demon ignored the 2 remaining samurai present, and there was a look of enjoyment on his face. Seeing that the demons despised him so much, the remaining 2 samurai could no longer bear the humiliation in their hearts, and drew their swords and slashed them even though they knew that they were dead. The demon didn't seem to react, and the blades of the 2 samurai slashed at him. One of them held a sharp blade and cut through the demon's chest, and the other slashed off the demon's arm. Just as their faces were happy, they saw a mocking smile in the eyes of the evil spirit. It's too weak for any of you to hurt, it's great to be a ghost. The demon laughed wildly and looked at the 2 ghost hunters in front of him with contempt. As soon as they withdrew the blade in their hands, they found that the demon's chest, which had been torn by the blade, instantly recovered. And the fallen arm, the devil didn't even look at it. It's just a thought, and the originally severed arm is suddenly reborn. The 3 of them are also samurai who are new to the Demon Slayer. Even if the head of the Demon Slayer team had mentioned to them, man-eating demons were not afraid of blades. However, this group of proud samurai did not take it to heart, and as samurai, they believed in the blade in their hands. In reality dealt them a heavy blow, and the shadow of death also hung over them. No, don't. The fear of death made them abandon the blade in their hands and turn and run backwards. Seeing the two samurai fleeing, the tongue ghost did not chase after him immediately, but stayed in place for a few seconds. He enjoyed the pleasure of the hunter chasing his prey, especially the frightened expression on the human face, which made him even more excited. A moment later, as the tongue ghost was about to leave, he suddenly smelled a very fragrant smell. His saliva flowed unconsciously, and his face showed a look of intoxication, and the only thought left in his mind was to eat the source of the taste. He jerked his head to his left, and in the dim moonlight, he could faintly see a figure approaching him. Is it thin blood? I'm so lucky. The tongue ghost had eaten a man with thin blood before, so his strength was far superior to that of ordinary ghosts. After eating that thin blood, not only did his strength and regeneration power increase a lot, but the ability to stretch his tongue at will was also born at that time. And the smell he smells today is 1,000 times more fragrant than before. Let me eat you. Let me eat you. The tongue ghost's outstretched tongue hung down to the tip of his toes, and his saliva flowed wildly. There was only a look of madness in his eyes, and he forgot about the two samurai he was going to hunt, and he galloped towards the night wind like a mad dog. At the end of the tongue ghost's vision, two red rays suddenly lit up. Night Wind's eyes glowed red, and under the scarlet light, his handsome face appeared in front of the tongue ghost. A cold chill for no reason suddenly struck, heading straight for the tongue ghost Tianlinggai. In the next second, I saw a scarlet hot sight tearing through the air, and a piercing roar came in. The tongue ghost with tense cells all over his body, and before his body could make a move, his hot eyes reached his eyes. There was a bang, and the head of the tongue ghost exploded instantly. The astonishing heat ignited the tongue ghost's body, burning his flesh to charcoal. In an instant, only a headless corpse was left on the ground, still burning violently. Bright red blood spurted from the corpse, quickly staining the ground red. Ding. Plunder. Long tongue, organ ability, rapid regeneration, special ability. Ding. Plus 50. Ding. Quest 1 kill a ghost. Completed, get reward. 200 energy points. I died when I shot my head, and I thought it would grow. Quote. Nightwind walked up to the tongue ghost and kicked the charred corpse with his foot. It seems that he still overestimates ghosts, their regeneration ability still has a limit, and ordinary ghosts can't regenerate heads. Why did an ordinary samurai cut off the head of the ghost, but the ghost did not die, and he could only die if he cut it off with a ninja sword? Mainly because of the severed heads of ordinary soldiers, they are intact. Demons can manipulate limbs or blood to easily reattach heads. And if the Nichiren knife is decapitated, it is equivalent to applying a barrier film to the wound on the neck. In this way, the ghost will not be able to control the body to take back the head, and the ghost will naturally die later. Only a ghost who breaks through the boundaries and reaches the level of the Ghost King Onamaisuji's miserable level can truly achieve the immortality of beheading. The terrifying red glow in the eyes of the night wind gradually subsided, and he looked at the two abilities that burst out. Long tongue. After fusion, the tongue becomes elongated, as hard as iron and can be manipulated arbitrarily, extending up to 10 meters. Rapid regeneration. Consume physical strength to heal wounds quickly, even if it is a severed limb and serious injury. It can also be regenerated and recovered, and if the physical strength is insufficient, the healing speed will be slowed down. A waste capacity, the latter is a bit useful. Quote. Looking at the rapid regeneration night wind behind him, his face was happy. His regeneration ability is not strong, at least no matter how much sun he basks in now, he can't reach the point of rebirth with a severed limb in a short time. To have such a rapid regeneration capability is undoubtedly a huge step forward. The ability of Long Tongue is converted into 50 energy points, and the ability of rapid regeneration is integrated into one's body. The night breeze can clearly feel that his cells are more energetic. Even when he was not absorbing solar radiation, his physical fitness was steadily rising, but he did not bask in the sun as quickly. At this moment, the lights are dim, and the city is prosperous at night. A young man dressed in regular clothes, dressed in black and with black hair, tall, pale as paper, and red plum eyes, suddenly turned his head to look in the direction of the neighboring town where the night wind was. The ghost who killed me in an instant. Quote. The last memory of the tongue ghost flowed back into Onamaisuji's mind, and he suddenly became curious about who the night wind was. He has been on the earth for nearly 500 years, and his only wish is to find a plant called the cyan flower, to complete his body, so that he can walk in the sun. But the only person who knew about this plant was the doctor who treated him in the first place. After killing him himself, the plant's whereabouts are unknown. Give away your power and create those ghosts, so that they can find the cyan flower for themselves. Recently, he has begun to deliberately look for talented people and good doctors. As for the Ghost Slayer team that appeared, they were just ordinary humans, and they didn't care at all. And the appearance of Nightwind is the only one who kills the ghost so simply. If you subdue it, you will be able to increase your combat power. At the same time, Ghost Dance Suji, who returned to the stronghold, checked the location of the tongue ghost. There happened to be a country doctor over there, and after taking in all the famous doctors in this city, I went over. Quote. Even if he doesn't go now, he'll be ready to go later. The map is densely marked with records of doctors from all over Neon Island. These are all the information that Onamai Suji Muru asked his subordinates to collect on his behalf. He didn't believe that if he gathered the best doctors and the most out-of-the-way doctors on the whole island, he couldn't find the so-called cyan flower. For the strength shown by the night wind in the memory of the tongue ghost, Onamai Suji is not miserable and fearless. In his opinion, he was already invincible, and he only needed to find the cyan flower to truly transform into a perfect existence. No matter what kind of human being is, after all, he is just food in front of him. The night breeze in the neighboring town didn't know that Onamai Suji had already started to come. He had already hurried back to Zushi's house, back to his bedroom with her. Seeing her husband come back, Zushi's cheeks instinctively dyed a bright red, his breathing became a little short, and the placket on his chest was also up and down. In recent days, her body has become very strange. Whenever the night breeze approaches, it instinctively does so. Zushi immediately muttered, "Husband, it's late at night, let's rest." Quote. Her voice is so weak that you can't help but want to bully. As Nightwind's big hand wrapped around her slender and delicate waist, Zushi's body bones instantly softened. Just when Zushi himself didn't know whether to hold on to another wave, Nightwind said softly, "Don't move, sleep in peace." Quote. Thank you, husband, for your understanding. Quote. Zushi couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief, biting his lip lightly, feeling ashamed and happy in his heart. I am ashamed that I did not fulfill my wife's duties, and I am glad that the night breeze is so gentle to me. Zushi stretched out his delicate arms and placed them in front of the night wind, curled up and fell asleep. A month passed quietly, the days here were peaceful, the only uncomfortable thing was the lack of internet and mobile phones. Nightwind also knows why ancient people had so many children, because making children is the main pleasure. Zushi's spirit has also improved a lot recently, and his figure has become more and more round and full. Today's Pearl world has faded away from the charm of youth, exuding the fragrance of ripe peaches from the inside out. This time is also the happiest day in the Pearl world, and it is also the day when she is very sad. Her grandfather's physical condition has taken a turn for the worse, and half a month ago, his body was a little unable to walk. Half a month later, I couldn't get up from the bed anymore, and it was useless to drink medicine. Grandpa Zushi's health is getting worse, and it can be said that he is already a candle in the wind. Looking at the crying gaze in front of the bed, Grandpa Zushi just smiled and comforted weakly. I was frightened by a black bear a month ago, and my heart was broken, and I became ill from overwork, and there was no cure for it. Seeing that Zushi was able to get married, my wish came to an end. Son-in-law, please take care of Zushi. You just have to live well. I'm satisfied. Grandpa Zushi was holding on to a breath before, which is why he was in a hurry to marry Zushi. As a physician, he knew his limit was approaching. During this time, I have seen my granddaughter happy, and I also know that Yefeng is a person who can be trusted. Now that my wish has been granted, the strong breath in my heart is discharged. There was no reason to continue to hold on, and the old and weak body soon collapsed. And after he explained the aftermath and handed over the ancestral property to Night Breeze, he swallowed with a smile. The Night Breeze gently hugged Zushi, who was hiding his face and crying bitterly, and nodded seriously to Zushi's grandfather who closed his eyes. This old man is kind and loyal, and he also regards him as his own relative from the bottom of his heart. Under the auspices of the night wind, a beautiful funeral was soon organized. This is indeed very grand in a small town. In terms of money, Yefeng was not worried, and a few days ago he killed a lot of ghosts, and at the same time, borrowed money from several wealthy merchants. During the wake, Nightwind looked at his panel. Name: Nightwind. Race: Human, Kryptonian. Talents: Energy absorption, body of steel, super strength, super speed, thermal vision, bio force field, super smell, super hearing. X-ray vision, can see through most objects. Telescopic vision, able to see things up to 10 kilometers away. Microscopic vision, you can easily see the existence that is smaller than grit. Overspeed regeneration, the internal organs can be destroyed and can be regenerated quickly. The heart is destroyed and the regeneration rate is slowed down, and the brain is completely destroyed and cannot be regenerated. Power points: 1300. In the past month, he has basically awakened all the abilities of Superman, and he is just short of the few super breaths. Super speed regeneration was obtained by his fusion evolution, and the fusion and evolution of this ability alone consumed 1000 energy points. However, this super speed regeneration ability is worth it for him. Even at night, his physical strength could barely be exhausted, and it was easy to regenerate from a severed limb. If we can evolve again, maybe the weakness of the brain can be removed. Quote. Night Breeze was eager to try, but he knew that the energy points needed behind him were multiplied. And the explosion rate of killing ghosts is not high, and even many of them don't lose their abilities. Being able to make up energy points to evolve the ability of super speed regeneration squandered the ability he had collected during this time, and he also took a lot of energy points. The ghosts within a radius of 100 miles were all wiped out by him. Such a huge action naturally alarmed the attention of the ghost-killing team. At this time, the ghost-killing team did not seem to have mastered the breathing method universally. Even in the face of the most ordinary ghosts, ghost hunters are dead. Hearing that there are gods here who can pacify a group of ghosts, the people of the ghost-killing team came over more than once to try to communicate with the night wind, but they were all ignored by him. It's useless to break such a broken tissue, and if you want to pull yourself over as a coolie, don't even think about it. Isn't it miserable? He actually came in person. Quote. Nightwind heard something in his ears at this time, and glanced in the direction behind him. His gaze stretched rapidly, and he soon saw Wu Miao, who was 10 kilometers away from the town, and a few ghosts that followed. Now he has a good grasp of the use of super hearing. The sound of a ghost's heartbeat and breathing is different from that of a human. All you need to do is set a limit in your head to block out the clutter of sounds and hear the whereabouts of ghosts. In this way, the load on the brain will not only be reduced, but it will also avoid being put in the back of others. Zhu Shi, you're still pregnant, let's go back to the house first. There's also a bunch of ghosts out there, I'm going to solve it. Quote. The night breeze gently helped Zhu Shi next to her body, and she naturally chose to listen to her husband's words. She's pregnant now, and that's what Nightwind told her. Zhu Shi stroked his soft and flat lower abdomen and obediently returned to the bedroom to rest. After the night breeze closed the door, his legs were slightly bent, and a few dust particles swirled in the air. The next moment, the night wind quietly rose into the air, and under the dark night sky, silently jumped up to a height of 100 meters. He spread his arms, and the bioforce field unfolded, allowing it to glide through the air like a bird. Although he can't actually fly, he can control the direction of the fall with a short flight, which he can easily control. Phew. Phew. From afar, the night wind looks like a falcon, streaking across the sky at breakneck speed. Nightwind left several times in quick succession, and in less than a quarter of an hour, he had crossed a distance of 8 kilometers to not far from the Anamai Suji warrior team. Boom. When he landed again, he didn't rein in his strength. In an instant, a strong wind rushed in all directions, blowing away several of the nearest trees. The ground at the feet of the night wind also trembled, like the impact of a falling star. The huge explosion of the fall from this side quickly attracted the attention of the Anamai Suji miserable team. Ghost Dance Suji frowned and shouted coldly, "Go and see." Quote. Several demons with extraordinary strength immediately approached in the direction of the night wind at an extremely fast speed. It's just a grove of trees, not far from the wide boulevard. A few demons with iron complexions, yellowed pupils, and hideous faces soon saw the night breeze slowly walking out of the woods. Nightwind also saw a few ugly demons who were following Onamaisuji. Because of the blood of a lot of Onamaisuji, the bodies of these demons are extremely large, and the smallest ones are 2 meters tall. Their bodies are varied, some have horns, some have 4 hands. Smelling the smell of night wind, which was 10 million times sweeter than that of thin-blooded humans, several evil ghosts instantly lost their minds. Roar, roar, let me eat you. The 4-handed demon at the front, shaking his head frantically, leaned down and slashed at the ground with his arms and feet. Knock knock knock. When the earth shook, the 4-handed demons rushed to the night wind. Just as he was impatiently reaching out for the ghost claws to grab the night wind and stuff it into his mouth, a small fist in his eyes tore through the air and blasted over. The 4-handed demon was greeted by a cannon fist of the night wind. There is no skill in the slightest, only pure power and speed. The punch exploded into a sonic boom and slammed into the jaws of the 4-handed demons. Bang! Before the fist could smash it, the impact of the strong wind shook back the 4-handed demons. It was the first time he had been hit so hard that he couldn't react at all. Nightwind's fist smashed like a piece of soft tofu, crushing the upper half of his body into pieces from top to bottom. The massive head swirled in the air, straight into the night wind. Nightwind grabbed him by the hair and held it in his hand. Plop! The lower half of the 4-handed demon's body fell at the feet of Nightwind. The slightly trembling ghost hand just wanted to raise it and snatch it back, but the night wind kicked it out. Bang! There was another roar. The strong airflow impact made several evil spirits behind involuntarily follow. The corpse of the 4-handed demon, like a small mountain bag, instantly exploded into a rain of blood in the dark night. Flesh and blood were scattered in the blood mist, nourishing the ground beneath their feet. Ah! The demon head in Nightwind's hand was still closing one by one, trying to gnaw at Nightwind's palm. It's just that the fangs slammed into Nightwind's hand, but it cracked his own teeth. Disgusting. Quote. The night wind casually threw it back, and the head of dozens of caddies of watermelon smashed on the trunk of the tree, and instantly exploded into a puddle of minced meat. Ding. Plunder. 4 hands, organ ability, strange power, special ability. Ding. Plus 100. For the first time, the demons who saw this scene felt so weak and helpless. The ghost dance Suji who was observing in the back was not miserable, but at this time he was still watching with interest. He didn't have the slightest emotional fluctuation about the death of his own ghosts. Every ghost he creates has a curse buried in it. If in the future, he will get the cyan flower to complete his body and become a perfect creature. Then the first thing he had to do was to kill all the ghosts he had created. Because these ghosts are not only his tools, but also his stains. He doesn't allow anyone else to have the same power as him. Far more terrifying than ghosts, fun and interesting. If I turn him into a ghost, he'll be the strongest member of my family. Quote. Onamaisuji was amazed by the tragic shooting, and his eyes were as if he had found a new toy. And the few evil ghosts who faced the night wind were not good. The fear of death allowed them to overcome their cannibalistic instincts, but under the orders of Onamaisuji, they were in a dilemma for a while. Not yet. Night Breeze was very kind to help them solve this problem. 2 blinding red lights lit up in the dark night, and in an instant, a scarlet hot sight burst out from the eye of the night wind. Blazing beams of light instantly lit up the area, and several demons didn't even have time to react. The hot sight of nearly 3000 degrees Celsius warmed their bodies. Under the hot gaze, the bodies of several demons were first cut and smashed, and they were quickly swallowed by the surface of the earth that turned into magma. In less than 10 seconds, Nightwind was already in front of his eyes. And the demons struggled in the sea of lava and fire, feeling the pain of being swallowed by the molten lava as every inch of their bodies continued to regenerate. Onamaisuji's eyes gradually changed from initial joy to jealousy, and finally to fear. To get rid of him. To get rid of him. Onamaisuji is not miserable, and he does not allow anyone to be stronger than himself. And the night breeze in front of him obviously exceeded the amount of equipment that could be accommodated in his heart. As the night breeze in the dark night looked up at him, looking directly at the figure with red eyes glowing like a demon god, Anamaisuji felt for the first time that someone was even more tyrannical and terrifying than him. Your killing intent is too obvious, and you're nervous, aren't you? Quote. Nightwind said in a playful tone, his feet not touching the ground, and he panned towards the floating air and came to Anamaisuji. From the perspective of the Night Wind, everything about Anamaisuji is clearly seen by him. With 7 hearts and 5 brains, it's disgusting to transform your body into such a shape. And when he saw the Night Wind flying over in an instant, Anamaisuji was even more frightened. Jumping off the carriage on all fours, the original elegant gentleman's temperament is now gone. I don't allow a creature that is more perfect than me. Anamaisuji roared, his arms suddenly turning into a stabbing whip, and he quickly pumped towards the Night Wind in front of him. In an instant, sharp barbs swept through the cheeks, throat, and heart of the Night Wind. Zzz. It was like an iron scrape, and the crisp and piercing sound echoed in the air. Barbs that shimmered with cold light swept across the body of the Night Wind, and clusters of fireworks burst out on the surface of the body, which were so gorgeous in the dark night. The barbed arm that flew wantonly shattered in such a stormy blow, and the flesh and blood flew sideways, but it failed to hurt the Night Wind in the slightest. Under the faint light of the fire, Anamaisuji is so hideous and terrifying. How could it be? How could it be? His own attack can clearly cut and destroy the house with one blow, why? Why didn't it work at all? The resentful Anamaisuji raised his head, and when he met the indifferent eyes of the Night Wind, the anger and resentment in his heart disappeared in an instant. For hundreds of years, he had been buried deep in his heart, and the fear of death burst out at this moment. The night breeze grinned, and the sunny smile seemed to be extremely kind, but the killing intent in his eyes grew more and more. How dare you touch me with your dirty hands, I want you to understand the preciousness of life. Nightwind's eyes lit up with a red light representing death, and at this time, the only thought left in Anamaisuji's heart was to escape. But as soon as he turned around, the scarlet beam tore through the air, striking through his skull. Ghost Dance Suji's miserable head was directly smashed by the heat sight in an instant. The shattered pieces of flesh and bones burned with flames and scattered like fireworks. Nightwind has no intention of keeping his hands at all, and after more than a month of sun, he can already release his heat gaze at high intensity. The blazing heat beam swept towards Anamaisuji's body, and the arms that had just attacked the Night Wind were instantly swept off by chi root. Ha 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 ha. Quote. The night breeze laughed wildly, and the laughter echoed in the night for a long time. In the midst of this wild laughter, the Scarlet's hot gaze continued to cut through the earth and Anamaisuji's miserable body. Puff! Exclamation mark. In an instant, Anamaisuji's miserable and headless body and limbs were all broken and exploded, spurting fishy blood, and the scene was very terrifying. Run, run, run. I want to live. I want to live. At this moment, there was only one thought in Anamaisuji's heart. There was a bang, and the remnants of Anamaisuji's body burst open. His body shattered into thousands of pieces of flesh and flew in all directions. The rest of the demon guards around Wu Miao lost control of their bodies at this moment. Their expressions were terrified, and they uncontrollably slaughtered the Night Wind. Boom! The scarlet gaze swept away, and the demons were shattered to pieces, turning into bonfires in the wilderness. And the Night Wind stood in place, and the red glow in his eyes gradually converged. The smile on his face suddenly retracted, and he stared blankly at the ground beneath his feet. Most of Kimaisuji's slices of meat were buried in the dirt, and he could not really kill him unless he dug 3 feet into the ground and collected the slices of meat little by little. The ability to survive without misery is so strong, and it can't be swept away like this, it's disgusting. Quote. Nightwind spat on the ground and was speechless and withdrew his gaze. He was really envious of this level of flesh and blood rebirth, and a little bit of meat would let him live if he was slipped out. At present, he can indeed beat Anamaisuji without misery, but it is not easy to kill him. He took a closer look at what he had learned. Ding. Recover plus 700 energy points. Ding. Mission 3 Defeat the strongest person in the current world. Completed. Get the reward. Blood-cursed special ability. The demons brought by Anamaisuji Muru are very strong. After converting the useless abilities you get a total of 1200 energy points. After all the remaining fast regeneration abilities are fused, 1000 energy points are consumed to obtain a super speed regeneration ability again. It's a pity that he has 700 energy points left now, and he doesn't have the ability to fuse and evolve again. Nightwind could only turn his gaze to the completed task. He always thought that the strongest person was Jiguiwan, and it turned out that Onamaisuji was miserable. And even if this task is completed, it still hangs on the task board and does not refresh. Nightwind doesn't know if it's a bug or what's the reason, anyway, it's the only way to do it now. He looked at the ability, Blood Curse, that had been rewarded. Blood Curse. You can give blood to others to make it your dependence. Gain a portion of your bloodline's power and increase the strength of your bloodline according to the amount of blood. You can set a curse and arbitrarily control the existence of a dependent. Blood Curse. Fusion. Quote. Nightbreeze suppressed the surprise in his heart and immediately fused this ability. There is no doubt that this ability is one of the core strengths of Onamaisuji. From the introduction of this ability alone, Nightwind can see its domineering. Judging from the situation of the original book, there are only 5 ghosts that can get rid of the control of Onamaisuji. And if it weren't for the special circumstances, it would be impossible for a ghost to get rid of the domination of No Misery. If you can also distribute your own blood to others, you can convert it into your own dependence. Then at least you can quickly cultivate a force in a short period of time. A force that can be completely at his disposal. As the power of the blood curse melted into his body, the Nightwind didn't change much. He couldn't wait to turn around and leave, returning to his abode as fast as he could. When he came to the door of his bedroom and pushed the door open, Zushi was lighting the oil lamp at the moment, lying on the bed, quietly waiting for his husband to return. She felt that her husband was the strongest. After all, many evil spirits had been uprooted by him, and this time should be no exception. It's just that she still can't help but feel sad in her heart, and when the night breeze comes back from the door, she immediately can't help but stand up happily. The shoulder straps of the pajamas slipped off quietly, and the eye-catching white fragrant shoulders instantly attracted the attention of the night breeze. Zhu Shike didn't care about this, but threw herself into her husband's arms. Husband, welcome back. Quote. Her delicate voice is even more seductive, and her tulle pajamas can't hide her graceful figure. The soft feeling of oppression shook the Nightwind's heart, and he almost didn't hold it again. Fortunately, he was determined to help Zhu Shi sit down and get down to business. Zhu Shi, wait a minute, open your mouth and all. Before the night breeze spoke, I saw that Zhu Shi's face was like a ripe red apple. Husband hates it. She then opened her lips, stretched out her hand and began to act. Wait a minute, it's not this, let me finish. Nightwind hurriedly grabbed Zhu Shi's delicate little hand and explained that it was not what she thought. Looking at the Nightwind's impatient appearance, Zhu Shi tilted his head, and a question mark almost appeared above his head. Isn't that what it means? She remembered that Night Breeze liked it very much, so she got used to it later. After all, this can also relieve the pressure on your body and will not burden your body too much. Zhu Shi, what I want to say is that you open your mouth to drink my blood after that, try to drink as much as you can. Quote. With the night wind of overspeed regeneration, there is now as much blood as there is. And Zhu Shi, who heard the order of the night wind, was confused and didn't understand the meaning of the night wind at all. Drink your blood, husband, how can I do this? Quote. Hearing what the night wind said, Zhu Shi immediately thought that he had heard it wrong. Seeing that the night wind was serious, Zhu Shi hurriedly shook his head. Seeing that Zhu Shi was so resistant, Night Wind immediately spoke. My blood can cure your ailments. You also want to live and see your children born and grow up, right? Quote. Night Wind's words made Zhu Shi stunned, and she suddenly fell into hesitation. Okay, be obedient to me, I'm the head of the family and listen to my arrangement. The Night Wind did not give Zhu Shi the right to refuse, and the domineering made Zhu Shi open his mouth. Zhu Shi shrank his head, looking at the tough Night Wind, and his body instinctively opened his small mouth obediently. Night Wind then used the bioforce field to soften the skin of the palm of his hand, and cut open a wound with his heat sight. Bright red blood poured out of the wound and flowed into Zhu Shi's small mouth, which was as soft and seductive as a rose petal. The white teeth were also dyed bright red, and looking at the wound on the Night Wind's hand, Zhu Shi was very distressed. It's just that without Night Wind's order, she can only continue to sit on her knees and drink the blood of night wind. Until she felt that she was almost full, she blinked again and again to signal the night breeze. Phew. At the moment of retracting his palm, because he no longer suppressed his own regenerative power. With just a few breaths, the wound on his hand healed as before. Seeing that the palm of the night wind was as white as ever, Zushi breathed a sigh of relief. And then she felt that her body began to get hot, as if there were warm currents running through her body. The originally weak body was completely healed in an instant. For the first time, Zushi felt that he was breathing so easily, and he was no longer as depressed as before. The originally violet-like eyes suddenly appeared with a touch of golden light. The golden light outlines the S-pattern of Superman, buried deep in the soul of the Pearl world. In an instant, all the thoughts in Zushi's mind could be heard by the night wind. Even if it was her memory, night wind could change it according to her own thoughts. If he wants, he can also bury a spell in Zushi's body, and if the taboo is triggered, his body will explode and die. A panel also appeared in front of Nightwind's eyes, which was not his own, but Zushi's. Because he wanted to see the situation of Zushi more intuitively, the super brain directly converted the collected data into an attribute panel for him to observe. Dependence. Night, Pearl World. Bloodline Fusion Degree. 20%. Talents. Energy Absorption, Blood Curse. Ability. Strange Power, Rapid Regeneration. Weakness. Kryptonite, need to be in the sun regularly for more than 10 minutes. Loyalty. Max. Set spell binding. None. Physical condition. Pregnant. Heart. My body is so warm, I can finally get along with my husband for a longer time, my husband looks at me, so happy. The scattered information, summarized into panel data, really knows what the current physical condition of Zushi is at a glance. The miserable ghost wants to eat human flesh and is afraid of the sun, so I have to bask in the sun. Night Breeze is also worried that Zushi will be afraid of the sun, but the situation is different from what he thinks. Originally, I was ready to find the cyan flower and turn the Pearl world into the ultimate creature. Co-authored with the dependents transformed by his own blood, he has nothing to do with Ghost Dance Suji. The dependents of the self-made or pseudo-Kryptonians in a sense at all. Now to truly create a dependent, the Night Wind is a more intuitive way to feel the horror of this ability. Zushi can easily torture and kill ordinary people now, and he also has a strong regeneration ability, and he is not afraid of swords at all. Her strength does not decrease at night, and it can be said that she is more fierce during the day. And unlike the ghost who has been transformed into a ghost by Onamai Suji, Zushi can improve his strength by basking in the sun. It's just that her ascension speed is probably less than 1/10 of that of the Night Wind. But this is already a step to the sky for an ordinary person. The most important thing is that Zushi can create subordinates, but the strength and bloodline degree will decrease. Unless they are given the blood of the Night Wind later, the dependents made by the Pearl world basically have no potential. Of course, this has little potential compared to the Night Wind. If it's a ghost who is not miserable with the standard ghost Maisuji, his dependents can be able to kill the ghost in the same situation. Night Wind also followed Zushi immediately, explaining her physical condition. After burying Grandpa Zushi's coffin the next day, Yefeng and Zushi are ready to pack up their things and go to live in a bigger city. He was ready to return to the overworld, and he had to arrange Zushi's living before leaving. There is no concern about coming back, he can fix the current time anchor so that the time will not change when he comes back. In other words, he never left. When Night Breeze and Zushi were selling the pharmacy and packing up their things to go to the city, a team of Ghost Slayer teams has arrived near the town at this moment. Headed by this generation of the head of the Sanyashiki family, Sanyashiki Yaoguang. At only 20 years old, he should have been in good health, but his face was full of scars, he was blind in one eye, and his body was even weaker. The Demon Slayer was created by the Sanyashiki family. Onamai Suji was once a member of the Sanyashiki family. After Wu Miao became the king of ghosts, the Sanyashiki family was cursed. All newborn children are sick and sickly and will soon die. Their family also followed the advice of the shrine deity and created a ghost-killing team to hunt evil spirits. Since then, the Sanyashiki clan has been married to the daughters of the clergy, and newborns have died shortly after birth. But even so, no one in the Sanyashiki family has ever lived past the age of 30. After generations of deep hatred, their ghost-killing team is no longer a tool of the Sanyashiki family, and has made ghost hunting a real business. Around him, all of them were swordsmen who had mastered the breathing technique. Recently, Ji Guiwan joined the ghost-killing team and taught them the breathing method of ghost hunting without reservation. Therefore, the ghost-killing team really has the capital to fight against evil ghosts. And they came this time because they heard that there were other strange people here. I have seen the powerful Shiryashiki Yaoguang of Jiguiwan, and I know how important it is to be a truly strong person. If you can entrap such a strong person again, it is estimated that it will not be difficult to eradicate all the evil ghosts. For this reason, he did not hesitate to be a corporal and personally brought in to invite. There was still an incomparable shock in his eyes and the eyes of the other swordsmen. On the way to the town, they saw the earth cut by something. The ground, which also exuded scorching residual heat, silently illustrated how terrible the blow had been to this place before. They also recognized the ashes of a demon's corpse. Yao Guang is also more convinced that the previous rumors are not false, and he is not wrong. According to many inquiries, they soon learned of the existence of the night wind. Nightwind never tried to hide his identity, because there was no one in this world who was worth hiding anything from him. Whoever dares to jump in front of him, he can give the other party a taste of hot sight. A few pimply bullies had come to make trouble before, and only one by one their heads were thrown at the village gate the next day. Therefore, the people of the town worship and fear the night wind almost as a god. Yao Guang and his party came to the pharmacy and shouted a few times cautiously. The night breeze that shields super hearing every day slowly and leisurely walks out. When he saw the team of people in front of him, he suddenly looked puzzled. Who are you? What are you doing here? If you want to buy medicine, just pick some and give back money. Quote. No, hello Lord Knight, we are ghost hunters of the Ghost Slayer team. Quote. When the swordsman saw the young boy of Nightwind come out, he was stunned. But he didn't dare to have half contempt, there was only respect and fear in his eyes. After arriving in the town, the Ghost Slayer heard about the night wind. The one in front of him is not as sunny and kind as he seems. Hearing that it was the ghost hunters of the ghost-killing team, Nightwind looked at these people and said. Say what you mean, don't beat around the bush. Quote. Yaomitsu, who was helped up by the swordsman, immediately walked up to the swordsman. He smiled and said in as gentle a tone as possible, You are Your Excellency Nightwind, you are really a talent, please don't mind being ugly, I am the main public property of the Ghost Slayer clan. Can you know if you can join the Ghost Slayer, we are willing to pay any conditions. Quote. Unlike a pure swordsman like Ji Kunichi, Yaoguang Sanyashiki saw at a glance that Nightwind's temperament was not so good. Therefore, he did not make any big senses, but went straight to the point and put forward conditions. Whether it's money, power, women. They can afford to give birth to the House Shiki family. The heritage of the centuries-old family is here, and Yaoguang doesn't feel that there is anything he can't provide. Nightwind wanted to ignore it directly, but after thinking about it, he might have a place where he could use this ghost-killing team. He needs a force, and it would be very troublesome for a lonely person to do everything himself. And now he also has the capital to create a force, and the Yaoyashiki Yaoguang in front of him can be used as his pedal. Yes, as for the conditions, we will talk about it when I move to the city. Quote. With his verbal response, the task on the panel was directly displayed as completed. Ding. Mission 2, join the Demon Slayer. Complete and receive reward. Breathing of fire. The skills of using the flame-breathing method, as well as the sword moves, immediately poured into Nightwind's mind. Nightwind's expression didn't change in the slightest, and he didn't even look at the so-called flame-breathing method a few times. I can blast others with a single look, what kind of breathing method do I want? Are you moving to Osaka Castle, and we'll take care of everything you need? Yaomitsu's expression couldn't contain his ecstasy, he didn't expect this trip to be so smooth. Regarding the idea proposed by Yaoguang in the delivery house, Yefeng nodded slightly and did not refuse. It doesn't matter where he lives, why not have someone to help with him? Zushi, we should be able to leave tomorrow, let's go to Osaka Castle. Quote. Night Breeze went back to the house to chat with Zushi, who was packing up her things, and easily hugged her plump body. Zushi's figure is getting better and better, and after his own watering, he is becoming more plump and graceful, and his skin is silky and white. The peerless style of that smile makes people want to move, and they can't stop. Everything is subject to my husband's arrangement, and I will simply pack up some things. Quote. Zushi replied with a happy smile and collected his things virtuously. The main ones are some family heirlooms of jade and medical books, as well as his own red-dyed sheets. These are the most important treasures for the Pearl world, and they should be carried with them for the rest of their lives. She doesn't have many things, just a few packages. Everything else was exchanged for money, including the home she had lived in for a long time. Even if the old doesn't go, the new doesn't come, and Zushi also knows that he shouldn't remember the past. The next day, Zushi wore a kimono and tied his long black hair into a bun, and set off closely behind Yefeng. For Zushi, a beautiful woman with all kinds of charms, the swordsmen present could only sigh in their hearts that the hero was matched with a beauty. Yaoguang didn't even sigh in his heart, because he couldn't appreciate the beauty of the Pearl world at all. His reproductive function was abolished 3 years ago, and it was good to be half-blind and able to see a human figure. Said before that the night breeze was a talent, but it was just a simple boast. After a long journey of 5 or 6 days, the group arrived at the magnificent Osaka castle. Compared to the nameless town before the night wind, this place is really magnificent, I don't know how many times. Yaoguang immediately led the two of them to the stronghold of the Ghost Slayer team. Zushi is also quite curious about the things here. After learning that Tsuyo was a physician, Yaomitsu asked her maid to take her to the shrine, which contained a collection of medical books. His series of actions are also to please the night wind. As for the accommodation of the two, he also quickly arranged a luxurious house to live in. For a series of flattery of the maternity house, the night breeze is also in the eyes. It's impossible to help him kill Wu Miao, that guy doesn't know where to hide. However, it is okay to clean up the demons in Osaka Castle, and he also needs to save a wave of energy points before returning to the overworld. And when he casually walked around the Ghost Slayer stronghold, Night Breeze came to the hall and saw a man. He is a deep red color, has a high ponytail, and has red irises on his eyes. A red houri with yellow clothes inside. Just by glancing at each other, both sides understood the strength of the other. From the fiery markings on the other party's face, the night wind can see that he is the first of the country. Ji Guoyueni, who was a young man, did not show his edge, but the breath of his whole body was extraordinarily peaceful, like a sword in the sheath. And in the first glance of Ji Guiwan, the night wind is even more unfathomable. This man is full of sun-like shining vitality, shining so brightly that it is almost impossible to look at it directly. From the moment he was born, he had a world of markings and transparency. This ability allows a creature to appear transparent in front of its eyes by concentrating and closing off excess senses. In short, it's not perspective, it's a more terrifying analog perspective. Through the breathing, heartbeat, and muscle movements of the other person, the condition of the internal organs and muscles can be simulated in the mind. And night wind is the first existence he can't see through. However, it was only a few glances, and with his own eyesight, Ji Guoyueni still saw that the physical fitness of the night wind was extremely terrifying, like steel. You're the capable person the Lord is looking for, it's nice to meet you, I'm Jigyu Yueni. Quote. Ji Guiwan spoke calmly to the night wind. The night breeze didn't shake his face either, and he stretched out his hand not to hit the smiling man. The two communicated briefly for a while, and Night Breeze took the initiative to ask for advice. There is no doubt that in terms of strength, he is superior. But in combat experience, swordsmanship skills, and so on, he is a weak chicken. Killing a ghost with one punch, where does he have a way to improve his combat experience and fighting skills? Although it is said that one's strength will be reduced by 10, but the technique is still useful after all, and it can help you exert your own strength to a greater extent. For the night breeze to ask for advice, Ji Guiwan did not refuse, but gladly accepted it, and taught it with all his heart. You have problems with the way you stand and the way you exert your force. Quote. After a brief look at the posture of the night wind battle, Ji Kunichi quickly pointed out the problem. Not only is the combat skill insufficient, it should be completely unskillful. The night wind relies on brute force, even if it can only use 1 point of 10 points, it can beat others to death. The more he taught the technique, the more he was amazed by the horror of Nightwind's physical fitness, as well as his ability to learn. As long as he taught it himself, he would roughly learn. If you practice it 2 or 3 times by yourself, you will have reached the point of perfection. Even if you are now a master of your own skills, if you teach them all, you can fully learn them in less than 3 days and nights. Ji Guiwan is not jealous of his own skills being easily learned by others, but is very happy for the talent of Night Wind. He had a feeling of finding his kind, and even taught Night Wind his own method of breathing in the sun. Sunbreath had taught the Ghost Slayer before, but none of them could learn it. That's why he created other breathing methods based on the characteristics of the Ghost Slayer team. The breath of the sun can emit the same energy as the sun through breathing. As long as you don't stop breathing, your physical fitness will increase dramatically. And this energy can also be transmitted to other objects, and if it is channeled to the blade, it can form a burning crimson blade, Hidao. The more I listen to the night breeze, the more I feel, isn't this just Ripple Qigong? When he tried to use the breath of the sun, the energy stored in his body was suddenly activated. Previously, he did not use the latent solar energy in his body, mainly for the consumption of thermal vision. As the rate of breathing changes, the night breeze feels able to call on the sun's energy and turns to active use, rather than passive activation. Ha ha ha. Brother Knight, you really know, why don't we have a discussion? Seeing that he had just taught the essentials, Nightwind instantly learned the breath of the sun, and a trace of competition suddenly rose in Ji Guiwan. There was a sense of war in his eyes that he hadn't fought for a long time, because no one had been his opponent before, and he was not qualified to be his opponent. That's good, it's better to be respectful. Nightwind stepped aside, picked up the iron sword on the shelf, and there was a bit of battle intent in his eyes. At the moment when he held the iron sword, the blade suddenly emitted an astonishing wave of heat. The blade of Tai Ching's sword also turned extremely red at this moment, like a piece of pig iron in the process of being forged. Enchantment of the sun's energy. The night breeze muttered to himself. In essence, the sword is simply used to hold the sword within human grip strength, or external collision to make the sword body red and hot. The most magical thing is to enchant the energy generated by the breathing method like Ji Guiwanichi. He is now opening the technique of the Hidao, which is not the way to open the Hidao by a professor of Jiguiwan. This is to inject the solar energy in his body into the blade of the sword, causing it to transform into this posture. He had no other way to use the energy of the sun in his body than to use his thermal vision. And now, under the teaching of Jigyu Yueni, he has found the trick and comprehended the method of using it on his own. The temperature in the entire cultivation ground began to rise rapidly. Bursts of heat overflowed from the surface of the night wind, forcing the nearby cultivators to retreat to a distance of 5 meters. And Ji Guoyueni, who was standing in front of the night wind, had more and more war intent in his eyes. At a glance, he could see that the method of opening the Hidao by night wind was not taught by himself. Ji Guoyueni immediately pulled out the blade on his waist, and the blade of the knife also changed to the color of the knife in an instant. The next moment, the two turned into two afterimages, and they fought in one place in an instant. ZZ. The two knives of different colors continued to sputter blazing fireworks in the confrontation. Even a swordsman 10 meters away from the cultivation ground could feel the oncoming wind and heat wave. From a distance, Nightwind and Jigyu Yueni, who are swinging their swords opposite each other in the dojo at this moment, are like two Jedi Knight fighting each other with laser swords. Breath of the Sun, One Shape, Waltz. Ji Guiwan really used the sword move of the Breath of the Sun, and in an instant, a raging flame burst into flames on the blade. The sharp sword slashed down in an arc that was close to a true circle, drawing a ring of fire in the air. The blazing fire hit, and the pupils of the night wind turned rapidly, and soon caught Ji Guiwani's slash beyond the speed of sound. It's a monster of monsters. Ji Guiwani's slashing speed even surpassed his dynamic vision. It's completely a mortal body, wielding the power that only a god can have. Bang! At the last moment of the slash falling, Nightwind raised its blade to block the blow. The sparks exploded 3 meters away, and even the ground around them was scorched by the flames. Almost the moment when the night wind blocked the first slash, Ji Guiwan first swung the second and third slashes. The endless slashes struck from all directions like a storm. The swirling light of the fire was like a roaring fire dragon, entangled in the body of the night wind. And the night wind is like a sponge, frantically absorbing the combat experience of the two of them. Ji Guiwanyi's power skills, the strength and angle of his swing. The skills he taught on paper were only on paper before, but they were integrated into the real battle. Everyone's human body and muscles have different angles of force. The combat experience and skills of others, no matter how similar they are, will never be able to keep up with him. And the night wind is breathing, and the brain is running fast to calculate. His body constantly adjusts angles and directions, and he soon finds the technique that works best for him. Breath of the sun, halo of the sun, head dance. In the time that he was suppressed by Ji Guiwan for more than 10 seconds, this was the first time that Nightwind used the breath of the sun. His body moved instantly, and in an instant, he turned into an afterimage, and slashed away with a wave of his knife at Ji Guiwan. The blade burst out with golden light, and the burning flames converged into a dragon's head, roaring at the Jigyu Yuan in front of him in a wanton and furious manner. Ji Guiwan's pupils shrank, and he was not frightened by the roar of this fire dragon. The real killer is hidden within this fire dragon, the golden and red blade that exudes a deadly threat. Breath of the sun, wanton type, phantom sun rainbow. Ji Guoyuani did not resist hard, but used high-speed twisting and maneuvering to create a dodge dance to dodge. It's just that as soon as his figure disappeared in place, Nightwind's sight caught his position. Breath of the sun, flame dragon slash. The Nightwind turned the tip of the knife and swung it far away in the direction of Ji Guiwan's dodge. This is not a sword move taught to him by Ji Guiwanichi, but a move that he improved and created himself. When the firelight flickered, the overwhelming flames almost obscured Jigyu Yuani's vision. Relying on the eyesight of penetrating the world, he saw a flaming fire dragon open its bloody jaws and attack him. Ji Guoyuani forcibly reversed the pace of landing, his body somersaulted in the air, and swung an arc longitudinal slash at the attacking fire dragon. Breath of the sun, wood type, train. The moment the flames wrapped around the blade collided with the roaring fire dragon, the surging energy directly blasted away Ji Guoyuani. The roaring fire dragon trail bit his sword and flew towards the courtyard, clearing dozens of meters away. Boom! The fire dragon slammed headlong into the clearing, causing the entire cultivation ground to shake and shake. A huge hole 3 meters wide and nearly half a meter deep was dug out of the burning lawn. The soil near the crater was scorched by the heat, and it became extremely black. Ji Guiwan broke out in a cold sweat on his forehead, panting for the first time and half kneeling in place. He looked down at the knife in his hand, and all that was left in his hand was the handle. Most of the blade above was bitten by the fire dragon, and the rest was melted into molten iron by the high temperature. The swordsmen in the entire cultivation ground were stunned, and after a long time, they glanced at the sword in their hands suspiciously. Let's not talk about wielding a fire dragon, even if it wields a sword chi, there are very few. And even if he wields his sword chi, this is not as exaggerated as it is in front of him. Why does it emit flames when swinging the sword, and even more against the sky, it also swings a fire dragon. At most, between the collision of blades, a few clusters of fire flashed, which was already the limit. For the swordsman, the scene in front of them was already the power of the gods. Nightwind also looked down at the iron sword in his hand at this time. The blade of the iron sword could not bear its own strength at all, and it quickly melted into molten iron and fell to the ground. Although the power is a little smaller, it is better to be hidden, and the cost is not high. Quote. If it is replaced with a thermal sight, to cause such damage, it consumes more than 10 times the amount of solar energy of this trick. Although he has consumed enough solar energy for more than a month, it has not yet reached the point where he can squander it wantonly. More of the sun's energy is used to strengthen the body, and the energy stored in the cells is still too little. It's me who lost brother Nightwind, and your talent is above mine. Quote. Ji Guiwan walked slowly, smiling, and his eyes contained true joy. Even if it was just a battle between the two, he had actually used his full strength. And Night Breeze is still at ease, he is more studying, choosing to suppress his physical strength and adapt to the battle. Ding. Mission 3: Defeat the strongest person in the current world. Completed. Get reward. Zebra natural ability. Night Wind just responded with a smile to Ji Guiwan's sentence or two, and a message popped up on the panel in front of him inexplicably. He looked at the three tasks that had not disappeared in confusion, and he only felt that there was definitely something wrong with this task section. As soon as the red markings appeared on his cheeks, they dissipated again. In an instant, the innate ability marking was adapted by his physical body and completely integrated into the innate ability of Iron Body. Nightwind felt that his stomach suddenly became so hungry, and his body temperature and the number of heartbeats began to increase exponentially. Standing in the night breeze under the sun, you can feel the cells of your body, and the speed of absorbing solar radiation becomes several times faster. The body temperature is over 39 degrees, and the number of heartbeats is more than 300 beats per minute. Life expectancy is running out like crazy, but this side effect is also great. The side effect of the opening of markings is that it speeds up metabolism, making it impossible for the human body to bear. Except for Ji Guoyuani, no one else lived past the age of 25. In this way, the rapid metabolic speed of the body is completely 4 times the speed of life. For the night wind, this has no disadvantages, and it only accelerates the speed at which it becomes stronger. His lifespan is still unknown, even if it is not immortal, he can definitely withstand such a rapid pass. At the same time, he also felt more and more that it was already a miracle that he could be born in this world. If it is a normal metabolic rate, he can live at least 400, or even 500 years with his current physique. The hungry night breeze immediately went to call someone to bring the food and put it directly in the sunlit courtyard to enjoy. No one dares to object to such a nonsensical approach as Night Wind. The demon slayer was able to order Jikoku Yuanichi purely because of his own character. Everyone knows very well that Night Breeze is not the first to follow the country, and is a person who abides by the rules. And the Night Wind, which is better than the first of the country's fate, undoubtedly has the ability to do whatever he wants. After drinking and eating, Nightwind went to check on the situation of Zushi. Sensing her location, Nightwind saw her chatting with the shrine's priestess. In this era, the shrine is more like a large family power, and the priests in it are blood families that have been passed down from generation to generation. The priestly witch in front of her is just a 6-year-old silver-haired little Lori, and she has already held this position. The delicate and cute appearance like a porcelain doll also provokes the night breeze to like it very much. After the night breeze inquired, I learned that this Lori was one of the several children of Yaoshiki Yaoguang. Yaoguang has a total of 1 son and 2 daughters. Both of these daughters were customarily passed on to the priesthood of the shrine as shrine maidens. And his son is responsible for inheriting the family business, and the 2 families can be said to help each other and pass on each other's bloodline. Big brother, you're the husband of sister Zushi, right? My name is Koyan Shiki, hello. The cute silver-haired Lori in front of her greeted the night breeze very politely. What a cute girl, my name is Night Breeze, Yian, you can play with me at any time. Quote. Night Breeze is also very happy to play with such a cute little Lori. And the house that Yaoguang arranged for him is also relatively close to the shrine. As a priest witch, the priest is also boring on weekdays. When I saw that someone could have fun with me, I suddenly nodded my cute little head. After that, she also pulled her sister to the maternity house and came to get to know the night breeze. Yaoguang learned that Yefeng actually had a good relationship with his 2 daughters, and he came to the door the next day and said that he wanted to tie the knot. Nightwind already knew everything about fighting with Ji Guiwan. The pit that had just been filled in the open space in the courtyard also made the maternity house Shiroshiki Yaoguang affirm that he had to make friends with the night breeze no matter what. Looking at another one who is so active in sending his daughter, he still sends 2 at once. Nightwind's cognition of this fierce era has increased for a while. The point is that you think I'm too beastly, these 2 are only 6 years old, how can you say it? Nightwind complained frantically in his heart, only to feel that the Yaoguang of the maternity house was too beastly. And when Yaoguang carefully asked if Night Breeze could agree. Okay, no problem. Nightwind's answer was also very crisp. The righteous and awe-inspiring appearance, I don't know, I thought I had promised something big. The 2 little Lori, who were still playing with Zhu Shi, didn't know that their father had sold them. Half a month later, Guangyan and Guangshun Lori learned the news. The little face immediately blushed, and he hid behind Zushi and didn't dare to come out. Zushi didn't care, but approved of such a marriage. And in this half-month, the night wind swept away the ghosts near Osaka Castle. Looking at the 5,000 energy points on the panel, the night breeze was full of joy. I don't know if it's because Onamai Suji is miserable, so he found some horns to hide. Nightwind wants to find ghosts to kill, and that's not an easy thing to do. Looking at the super speed regeneration that had been in the capacity warehouse for a long time, Nightwind immediately chose to fuse with the same ability as himself. The 3,000 energy points disappeared in an instant, and the name of super regeneration did not change, but the description changed. Super fast regeneration. The vitality is greatly improved, the heart can be quickly regenerated if it is destroyed, and the brain can be regenerated without being completely destroyed. The surging vitality surged in the body, and the night breeze stretched its limbs, and every cell was full of vitality. His strength is now over 3,000 tons, and his biological force field can support his body and fly at high speeds. It can be said that it can really be regarded as a strengthened version of the motherland. If you really want to compare, the strength of the motherland is estimated to be less than half of yourself. Thanks for watching.